Yeah, George. All right. Okay, we will now call the meeting of the Waco MPO Policy Board of the September 19th, 2024 to order at 1:35 in the PM. MPO staff, has this meeting been posted?
Yes.
And we will call into session the City of Waco City Council. We have our public hearings. We provide an opportunity for the public to address the MPO Policy Board on any agenda item. Please complete a speaker's registration card with MPO staff. Speakers will be allotted one presentation at the beginning of the agenda for each agenda item the speaker wishes to address. Please note that each action item will have a separate public hearing later in the agenda. Speakers have the option of addressing the board at either time, but you will only be allowed one opportunity to address the board per agenda item. We want okay, you do not need the translation. And for item 7, we don't have any registered speakers. So we will skip down to item number 3, approval of the minutes. We will move to agenda item 3, consider approval of the minutes of the June 20th, 2024 MPO Policy Board meeting some 3 months ago. A copy of the minutes was provided in your meeting packet. Are there any corrections to the minutes as submitted? Hearing none, the minutes will stand approved as presented. And we will move forward to number 4, election of policy board officers for fiscal year 2025. Dr. Dumont.
So all of our chair and vice chair positions are for 1 year, and each of the and the officers serve for 1 year to be elected, and they can serve for 2 consecutive years. And currently we are looking at the fiscal year 2025, which begins October 1, 2024 to September 30th, 2025. And both Chairman Woodrude and Vice Chair both Thomas have served 1 term in their position. And all the policy board members who have previously served are eligible to serve again. They just can't do it consecutively for more than 2 years at a time. So,
and it is my intention not to serve another term, God willing, and policy board willing.
So at this point in time, what we would like to see is nominations from the floor for the chair position.
I'd like to nominate O. Thomas to serve as chair of the MPO policy.
I'll second.
Nomination and a second by Yost. All right, any discussion on this? It's been tremendous serving with our vice chair, Bo Thomas, and hopeful that the vote will go in that direction. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, the ayes have it, and welcome to our new incoming chair.
Well, do you have to wear socks or no socks?
There's been some dangerous precedents set in recent years.
One sock on, one sock.
All right, and we will move to our vice chair nomination as well. Do we have a nomination for vice chair?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Andrea Bearfield, please.
Second.
We've got a nomination by Mr. Thomas and a second by Mayor Holmes. Any discussion? I will also say that I have served with Andrea Bearfield. I know her to be a great person and a wonderful leader, and hopeful that that vote passes as well. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. All right, the ayes have it. We welcome our Madam Vice Chair. So we will now move on to number 5, consideration and action regarding approval of 2024-12 ratification of fiscal year 2023 SS4A grant acceptance and authorization of MPO director to execute all related grant agreements.
There was one particular item that somehow did not fit into your speaker notes. So if you let me.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the items that unfortunately we failed to add to the chair speaker note. Well, one of the earlier items, the standard of conduct policies that are not only included in the Texas rules, there we are. One of the things we need to do is that make sure that certain ethical standards are followed. They're already in our policy board bylaws and they were amended in 2009. Article 2, Section 5 requires and defines what those standard of conducts are. And every policy board member is expected to affirm via the ethical standards affidavit on appointment, and all of you are rolling over. So each year, we expect you to go ahead and sign this agreement because we know that it can change. And we have Doris, who is a notary. She can notarize these affidavits for you. And so if you have not already received, if you do not have a form, please let us know so that we can provide you with the form. And we need your signature on that, and Doris can notarize them so that we have them for our record.
So if you haven't already signed the affidavit as a policy board member, be sure to sign it on the way out. Is that right? It'll be in the back. Daniela, is that? Okay, yeah. So if you haven't signed one already today, make sure to get one on the way out.
One more item that we since we got a little bit switched in our agenda item was that though if you please come here with the elections, we have a gift for outgoing chair. So we want to make sure that it is handed to you. So.
It's not big.
No.
I was like, you're so ginger.
This is a very nice plaque from the Waco Metropolitan Planning Organization. It's presented to Josh Borderoot, Chairperson, 2023-2024, in appreciation for your dedicated service and commitment to the Waco Metropolitan Organization. Thank you.
Gotta make it all fit. Thank you. This is really nice. I appreciate it. It's been a joy serving the chair. Thank you. Appreciate it. I still have to go through the rest of the agenda.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. So now
Thank you both. I appreciate it.
get to the regular.
Okay, now to SS for a fiscal year 2023 grant acceptance.
Yes.
Dr. Kumar.
So as you are aware that in 2023, we received $1.2 million in federal funding to conduct planning and demonstration projects across McLennan County. And so this map lists all the locations where we intend to undertake the demonstration projects. Just to recap, the projects are, there's a downtown project, there's a Valley Mills project, there's a LaSalle Avenue project, there's a project on Loop 340 between 84 and I-35. There's a project on the US 77 in city of Robinson. And we also have a project on Hewitt Drive in front of Midway Middle School. And that's a Safe Street portion for children. That's what we want to learn from. And so this particular grant has been agreed and signed on. So we are expecting the policy board to ratify the grant agreement at this meeting. So that's what this is.
All right. Do we have any registered speakers? No. We will open the public hearing at 1:43 p.m. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this matter from the public who is not a registered speaker? All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing at the same time. Any questions or discussion from the policy board? Hearing none, we will entertain a motion.
So moved.
All right, have a motion from Mr. Thomas, and I heard a second from Ms. Bearfield. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, the ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously, and we'll move on to action item 6, consideration and action regarding approval of 2024-13 Waco MPO Policy Board recommendations regarding study, locations, and charging station power levels for TxDOT NEVI plan.
So give me just a few minutes so that I can give you a bit more background on this so that because this over time has evolved a little bit. And so I also want to refresh everyone's memory on it. So in the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, which is part of the IIJA, it was enacted in 2021. And the idea behind it was to make sure that EV charging station locations were available throughout the United States, in which the initial location was to create the alternative fuel corridor, and the AFCs were supposed to be completely filled up before we move forward. This is a $5 billion formula program in which we also have the $2.5 billion in competitive grants that is under CF. So what we are doing today is that first I want to give you some more background of where we stand today. So Texas EV Infrastructure Plan was approved by FSW in 2022. It had two phases. The first phase was for the alternative fuel corridor. In our case, it meant I-35 and making sure that every 50 miles there are locations for DC fast charging locations. And so we have a total of 244 DC fast charger ports. And what in the phase two, what we're expecting is we understand that not all AFCs cover all of the area. So in the phase two, we want to prioritize every county that does not get any DC fast charging location. And after that, we're also looking at the MPO area boundary and making sure that the areas that are not covered with this AFC also get prioritized into this. A little bit more background. So both the NACS and the CCS1 is what we are trying to implement in all of these cases, the NAC, the North American Charging Standard, and the Combined Charging System Standard. The idea is that we want to be able to standardize the process to the point that all the cars that are electric vehicles, the same kind of charging station can provide the charging for all kinds of cars, rather than having three different technologies which have been used. And just to give you a little more background, the Nissan Leaf, that was one of the early electric cars, they used a chattable connector that is going out of commission. And so we'll not have those at any of these locations. But the rest of the cars, we are trying to standardize them to the point that whether it's a Tesla or a GM or a Ford or any of these, they can all charge from the same location. Next slide. So in the Texas EV plan, the typical cost that we are amounting for it takes about $150,000 per DC FC and $7,500 for level 2. Just to give you a sense of DC fast charging is what's typically need whenever you're traveling longer distances. Level 2 is a little more appropriate for things like putting it in your garage, or if you're going to be in a business, going to stay there for a long time, at your workplace and such, when you leave your car plugged in for a very long time. Otherwise, they're not good enough or sufficient enough for long distance traveling. So within this, what we are, part of the NEVI plan is that within 1 mile of the AFC, any location we put, it has to have minimum of 4 ports. And that's one reason why it means that, for each $150,000, it translates to roughly about $600,000 for a location that we are looking at. And so yes, so currently the amount of phase 1 implementation that we have been able to do is $408 million federal and $102 million in private. The way it has worked is that we're all familiar with how the 80-20 percentage works, federal share of 80% and 20% in local. Typically for each of these locations, our expectation is that the private sector is the one that fills out the 20% match in all of these cases. And so currently what we have in the round 1, that all these sites that were selected in 2024. And in the round 2, one of the important points that I want to make is that when we were counting the distances among the DCFC charging stations, earlier there were some of the areas that were counted, but later on with the audit, we came to, next slide, please. What we came to realize in Waco area, so this part that you're seeing south of downtown, one of the charging locations does not get counted. And therefore, TxDOT is going to do a separate call for proposals in this area. So that's what is highlighted in this particular case. Next slide, please. So this is the schedule that they have been pointed out, and we have been going through this schedule exactly where it is. It has been, we're not falling behind. So next, go to the next slide. And so in the phase two, what we're doing is the rural counties, small and large urban areas. And one of the important pieces that we wanted to make sure that you're aware that there has been a lot of anxiety about what happens if all the charging stations are fully plugged into cars that are all charging at the same time. And so it turns out theoretically that the peak power we would need is 667 megawatt, and which is significantly small amount compared to what the Texas power grid actually handles on a regular basis. So it is not a problem. Even if all the electric vehicles at the same time plugged in, it will not make any difference to our power grid. So we're fairly comfortable with that. In this phase two, what we're doing is that we're trying to figure out exact location where we seek TxDOT to advertise so that they can start soliciting for proposals for where they're going to be. And this is one of the nice things that TxDOT is doing, is that they have decided to standardize the process so that they can do this RFP on behalf of all the MPOs that way. And this would have been especially a problem for smaller MPOs because it requires significant amount of staffing need and such. So TxDOT will score and select the applications, but we do get to tell them, where these locations are going to be. So let's go to the next slide. So in the phase two planning, part of the planning was that we have already determined the desired power level. I shouldn't say we have determined. What staff is suggesting is that for this round, we do not want to see money necessarily going to level 2 as much as we think that it makes a whole lot more sense given where the locations are currently in McLennan County to fill in with the DC fast charging locations to the best extent possible and then worry about the level 2 locations later. Next slide. So based on a lot of analysis that we have done and also had extensive discussion with the Connected Automated Vehicle Work Group, what we have recognized that the challenge that kept coming up over and over again, traveling north-south is fine. Our problem is the travel on the east-west side. So we needed to identify locations on the east-west side corridor. And so what we are recommending is that let's propose US 84, State Highway 6 and State Highway 31 as the study area. And then we would request TxDOT to go ahead and do the request for proposal. And the private sector then can make proposals at whatever the suitable locations are. A little bit more background. So in our conversation with several private providers, a lot of private sector providers have already identified what are the areas that they want to be in. And so by telling them that this is the area we're looking at, there are apparently several private sector providers who have already mapped out all of the country to figure out where they want to propose, where they don't want to propose and such. And so our expectation is that once the policy board gives us the go ahead, the moment the first round is completed, TxDOT can go ahead and call for request for proposal in these areas. So what we are recommending is that let's identify US 84, State Highway 6 and State Highway 31. And we are also recommending that we do direct current fast charge of 150 kilowatt or better. That's what we're recommending. And we are requesting your approval for these study areas. And in terms of, let's next slide. In terms of amount that we are looking at, the construction is $1.84 million. That's for private. And there's additional $461,000 available for operations and maintenance for the next 5 years. The cost, as we mentioned, is $150,000 per DCFC. And based on that, we think that we should be able to get 3 locations, each location with 4 ports. Let's go to the next slide. So in terms of timeline, once TxDOT opens the program for application, it will take about 6 weeks. Scoring and selection will be about 4 weeks after that, 2 weeks of publishing result, 4 weeks of environmental clearance. And that's when it will take some time to add the projects to the TIP. And then we sign this recipient agreement. That's another 3 weeks, another week of FPAA, which suddenly I'm drawing blank on what that acronym is. Normally I'm the one surprised.
That's stumped you.
Exactly.
We're in new territory.
So
After that makes it the law.
And so the total project length is going to be about 6 to 12 months from start to finish, and actual construction will be about 2 to 4 weeks. So that's what we're looking at. And so once we discussed it at a July 17th meeting, Technical Advisory Committee reviewed it at the September 5th meeting, and they have made the recommendation to approve the resolution. And today we are conducting public hearing as well as expecting your action.
That having been said, we will open the public hearing at 1:54 in the PM. Are there any registered speakers here? Would anyone like to speak on this matter who has not registered? Okay, hearing none, we will close the public hearing at the same time. And to the policy board, do we have any questions or other discussion on this item? Do we have a motion to approve the recommendations from the MPO, including the mystery acronyms embedded in those recommendations? Move for approval by Ms. Emerson. Second by Ms. Bitterfield. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. We will move on to update and discussion regarding the 2050 MTP development and project prioritization. Dr.
So we wanted to keep you updated on where we are in the MTP development process. And again, the target date is the January meeting of the policy board for the final MTP to be approved by you. At this point in time, this particular one, Arthur worked so hard to get this one to summarize everything we do at the MPO. So we love to put this one everywhere we like. We have a poster, we put it on the easel every time we talk about it. This bus is just the perfect metaphor for what the MTP is, what the TIP is, what the UPWP are. It all captures all of it. But this is sort of like, what we're treating. The MTP is the bus that carries all these other documents that we produce regularly. And without that MTP, everything is scattered without any purpose. So next slide. So this is where we are. We are in the public meeting phase, August through October 2024. We have conducted 2 meetings. I'll give you a bit of an update on that. And next slide, please. And so since that, we wanted to update. We had 41 total submissions that included highway projects, public transit projects, locally, regionally significant roadway projects. 11 of the projects were carried over from 2045 MTP. And if you recall, the reason for that is that a lot of those projects already have investment from TechStart in the design engineering phase, so they're already moving forward. It did not make sense not to have them go through this process, so they were carried over into this next step. The MTP proposal evaluation team, they met twice, and we are so deeply grateful for the evaluation team because it took them almost 20 hours of their time to evaluate each one of these 41 proposals and sit down and have a discussion about, what to think of, to revise the proposals significantly. So we are very grateful for that. Next slide, please. So this is what comes out. We intentionally did not give great amount of details here, but we can zoom in and out anytime you like. But largely, what we want you to think of these is that there are several roadway projects, but in this round, based on a lot of discussion that Victor and his group and the MPO staff had, we figured that there were some of the things they were simply not clear enough. So it made more sense to talk about them as feasibility studies. So the 3 major areas that you would notice here are, so the 2 big ovals on the top and the bottom, those are regional connectivity feasibility study that we are proposing because north of Loop 340 and the south of Loop 340, there is no bridge on Brazos River. So it divides up McLennan County into east-west side without any connection. So we want to figure out what is the best strategy to deal with that part. US 84 corridor, we came out in our TDM that that is the high development growth. That's where most of the pressure is. So we want to make sure that we're wise about the kinds of investment that we need to be making in that area. And also, Hewitt Drive is very quickly becoming one of the most traveled and congested area. It is likely to go on the 100 most congested list. So we want to make sure that we understand the relationship between I-35 and US 84 using Hewitt Drive portion appropriately. So those are the feasibility studies that we have, and rest of the projects that you will notice are all the ones that have word. We're more than happy to discuss them in more detail. We just figured that we are going to be presenting to you the prioritized list at the next meeting, and then we'll have another month to go through. At the November meeting, we will expect you to give us the draft of the final prioritized list that we will take to the public again with that prioritized list, and that's what will go into the January meeting. Next slide, please. One of the very important changes for this 2050 MTP, it may look like a small technical change, but we think that it's a really important one. So we do want to spend a little bit of time to give you detail on what we're doing on this. So in the active transportation plan, we have several projects that are listed. And some of the projects that you see here, these are the projects that overlap with several projects within the active transportation plan. So what we did was that we took the active elements from the active transportation plan and incorporated them back into the MTP proposals that were made. And at the same time, we also had lengthy discussions with Victor and his staff and Victor and Brenton, and all those comments have been integrated. And what we're doing right now is that with these proposals, we're going out and doing these public meetings in these 2 months. And what we will expect is that once we have all the public meeting completed public meetings, and the comments are compiled, we'll bring them back to you at the next meeting. Next slide. The one after this. So bicycle and pedestrian work group, one of the things we asked the bicycle pedestrian work group to do is to identify the 15 most important projects that they may have. And we wanted to make sure that these projects are listed in the MTP to highlight the level of support it has. These are not necessarily projects that automatically are going to get funded. These are in fact unfunded recommendations. And the 5 meetings that we're going to do, what we're expecting is that by highlighting these projects, that's the kind of project we want to highlight, get all the jurisdictions to pursue. Next slide. So based on their recommendations, these are the locations that we have identified. So everything in the green shows that our bike ped work group has gone through all the projects from the ATP and incorporate that into the MTP proposals that we have. So these are the 5 public meetings we have. We have already conducted the one on September 11th at McLean Community College, the one in Belmead. Our next meeting is going to be on October 9th at Hewitt City Hall. And then we'll have another meeting on the following day in the daytime at Waco Transit Building. And then we'll be back here on October 15th for an evening meeting. Slide. This is just an image from the MCC meeting we had. And the next one from Belmead. And in all of these items, what we want to identify, let's move. So everybody listed here, they don't have to be at these meetings and to help us, but they have decided to go ahead and help us in very means. So Amy has been at these meetings helping us hold the discussions. Brian from McGregor, who had to leave, he has been at these meetings holding discussions on that. Both HDR and STV have made their staff available to help us organize and lead discussions and such. And both TxDOT Waco District, Brendan has been at these meetings, and Mobilize Waco, Suzette, who is not here today, she has been to all of these meetings to talk about accessibility. So we are very grateful for that help. And so what we need here, it's a directive action item today from you. Next slide. That we want you to go ahead and basically bless our effort that we are doing with the public meetings.
Does anyone feel like not blessing these efforts? I think you have the full blessing of the policy board to proceed. So moving on to review, discussion, and directive action regarding the Unified Transportation Program. Dr. Kumar?
So in this case, this is really is an update. You do not have to take any action unless you want to give us any direction. And this we're not expecting any, but we have invited Victor to walk us through the current UTP that was passed by the TxDOT Commission in August at their August meeting. And so we want Victor to walk us through all the projects that are listed in the UTP.
Sure. So just to familiarize yourself with the UTP, that's 10 years, TxDOT's 10-year planning document that we use to basically guide out money to different projects. So with this FY25 UTP, it just did get approved last month from the commission. From McLennan County, we have 8 individual listings, which compose 6 total projects. So real quick, I'm going to run through here. Most of these projects you're familiar with, but there may be a few changes that I can talk about. So the first one is the I-35 project. I think we all know about this one. We did have to increase Cat $40 on there by about $6 million due to inflation and the funding gap. So that is on track to be led in October. Next project is US 84. This is the ramp project between 1695 and spur 298. We did end up adding Cat 4 in the tune of 48 million. We still have the funding gap, but in the next couple of years, we're going to start looking at doing maybe some breakout projects if we can't get the project fully funded. Third project is State Highway 6. That's the 5-lane section between FM 185 and McLaughlin Road. That one is fully funded. There was no changes from last UTP to this UTP. The next project may be a little confusing. It's listed as State Highway 6, but it's actually the ultimate section of Loop 340. That's the portion that goes from Brazos River to Spur 44 because there is a control section break at that intersection. So it's actually linked with project 14, which is the other half of the 340 project. And then sandwiched in between those two projects, we have our State Highway 6 Twin Bridges. We did add the Cat 2 like we agreed on at the last update meeting. And then we backfilled it with Cat 4 to get it fully funded. And then finally, the last project is the Spur 298, the Franklin New Road project. There was no changes to that one and it remains. So any questions?
Go
Is there a breakdown of like what's gonna be involved in those projects, like individually?
As far as the project description,
Yeah, like what are they gonna do, like connecting those roads together? And like, I'm assuming, are you guys like rebuilding the loop all the way around?
yes. It'll be a reconstruction. It's going to go to an ultimate 4-lane divided section with full frontage roads.
Okay.
And there will be shared use path sections and sidewalk throughout the whole thing.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for. Moving on to grant efforts. All right, we'll move now on to updated discussion on current grant efforts by Dr. Gill.
So very quickly, you just ratified the FY 2023 SS4A grant that was executed on August 28th. And so we'll start the process for that. The first step on that is going to be a request for qualifications to do the design and engineering of the demonstration project. And later on, we'll do a project manager style RFQ so that we can actually do the demonstration and data collection. FY 2024, we were also awarded $800,000 to do the sign inventory project. But it gives the MPO staff even greater delight to see the city of Belmead and city of Robinson succeed so massively with the implementation grant. And I think Craig is here, Yost is here. We are so thrilled about it. There are, just to put it in perspective, in the entire state of Texas, there were 5 implementation grants. 2 of them are here. And so it was a massive effort that they both undertook. We're super happy about it. We'll start the FY24 sign inventory project. One of the items that I wanted to put on your radar is that we know that not all cities need a new sign inventory, but a lot of smaller cities do. And so we know that we have commitment from McLennan County, but what we will be doing is that we would like to put it on your radar that if any of the cities would like to participate in this, we would like you to go ahead and we'll call a meeting initially. And if you're going to participate in it, I would expect you to send your public works director or your building engineer for that. The RAISE grant was just approved at the city council meeting last Tuesday. And at this point, we are expecting to execute that sometime next week. And once we execute it, then we'll proceed with the RAISE grant as well. We have talked about the RAISE grant at this meeting several times. And so if you have any questions, we're happy to answer that here. We also have a SMART grant that is under consideration at this point in time. And I apologize for the language there. I think it says proposal currently being drafted by staff. Proposal being reviewed by Federal Higher Administration for potential funding. So it is submitted. We are waiting for the final decision on that. So those are the updates we have.
Any questions or concerns or other items of note on what was presented? Okay, let's move on to update and discussion on MPO redesignation, which I may have stolen a little of the thunder during our luncheon, but please give us an update on that.
So yesterday, normally Todd, text dot representative for the Waco MPO, he gets panic texts from me asking me, where is the form? And so, but I think this time, it was wonderful to hear from him and saying that, hey, I got some good news for you. That this request application has been moved out of Textile, has gone to the governor's office. And at this point in time, we're waiting for the governor's office to let us know what their decision is. Anything else you want to add?
That part covers. It has gone.
So that's what we have. So at this point in time, we'll wait from the governor's office. One of the things that in the background we have been doing is that we have gotten in touch with one of the local firms that does quite a bit of branding, and because we have had these discussions about, that maybe a name changes would be useful. There's corresponding bylaw revisions that will also have to be done. And so we'll undertake all of this, but the first step would be to make sure that we take full utilization of Josh's talent at, talking about some of these things. And so we're doing some background stuff. As we make progress, we'll keep you updated on this. That's
all right. Any questions or other comments on redesignation efforts?
No, I just got nervous that he was gonna start talking about your AI tendencies. You were gonna be responsible for the design. I was like, wait.
I have discovered some AI tools that have been fun for my Sunday school class and immediate family. But I will say, the governor, is he kind of pro or anti redesignation? Or, is this something that kind of sails through or? Okay, so it's not kind of a.
Yeah.
Okay, not a white knuckle adventure there. Okay, thank you so much. All right, update and discussion from the TAC. Zane?
Now, we met on the 5th of September this month, and we have Laura Wagstaff from the city of Waco has got voted in to be the vice chair. And we voted on recommending these solicitations and resolutions to the policy board, which y'all voted on. And so we're getting ready to get started on our next year.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Zane or the technical advisor? Appreciate it. All right, do we have a presentation on update and discussion from TxDOT on significant highway construction within the Waco metro area?
So I can say Clayton had reached out. So Clayton is out this week. And so we do not have Clayton presented. And one of the things that Clayton had mentioned at the technical advisory committee, that not for this meeting, but the following meeting, he will have those super duper aerial images that we all say again.
Updated pictures.
Yeah, updated
Okay.
pictures that we all love so much that we will start getting them. And so he wouldn't have had them for this meeting anyway, but starting next meeting, he will have those fabulous pictures that we have been enjoying. We can just walk through very quickly, what the slides that Clayton had already sent. I'm not even going to pretend to be Clayton.
Well, we can assume these are from within McLennan County.
Yes.
You parks. Should ask these.
So if you have any specific question, we don't expect Victor or Stan to answer all those questions, but we can certainly take note of it and make sure that the answer gets back to you.
Okay, let's move on. Do we have any work group updates today?
So we have bike and pedestrian work group update and there you go. Yes, thank you.
Well, we'll catch.
talked about our last bike ped meeting, we went over MTP 150 and sort of connected active transportation plan with an MTP. Generally, that group was desirous that the policy related needs from the active transportation plan be somehow enfolded in the MTP. And then secondly, jurisdictions will be encouraged to think about the policy related things and other intersectionalities in their project proposals. We reviewed a number of those project proposals and said, well, why we're building sidewalks, aren't we thinking about bus stops? You know, if we're thinking about bike lanes, well, what is the code and legislate or rules around use of the bike lanes? Well, what about funding for maintaining bike lanes and sidewalks, et cetera? Those are some examples that I think. Good generative discussion.
Andrew, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here and appreciate the work of the bike pedestrian work group. Any other work group?
The Connected Automated Vehicle Work Group met on July 17th. We have decided, so one of the important things we were doing was developing a white paper for a connected automated vehicle, and that white paper, we intend to include that in our MTP. And at this point in time, we are not going to have the meeting, which was the earlier scheduled meeting of October 16th, because we want everybody to spend more time on revising it, putting that white paper into the final format in which it needs to go into the MTP. So we will skip the October 16th meeting and we'll reconvene. The most important contribution the bike paper group has made is to produce that white paper to be included into that. And we'll of course give you an update on what the white paper is that we intend to include and we get it to the final stage.
Okay. MPO monthly staff report.
One of the things we did was Baylor University had a summer camp called I Engage program, and we had Daniela and Arthur.
Mainly Daniela. I had wisdom teeth surgery. I just actually missed the meeting to present, but Daniela did most of the presenting, and Annette was there also to help out, to fill in for me because I have to get my wisdom teeth taken out.
So one of the important part for this was we wanted to so they, you know how we get confused about the acronyms, since you know how terrible it looks from time to time. Well, how do you communicate this to 4th, 5th, 6th graders? What do we exactly do? And so Daniela took all the work we did and presented it to the students and had the students fill out the comment and question card. And those comments and question card, there were fabulous responses in that we brought back, and then our chair, Josh Boldroot, took those questions and addressed them, and we made a video of it. And then we went back to the camp and we went ahead and here is an elected leader responding to all the questions that you have had. If you would like to see the video, we are happy to show it to you. But that was a wonderful success. And I think that it is really important that it is really important for us to make sure that we are communicating all the material that we do at the MPO in a manner so that it is accessible for children, because as we mentioned earlier, that every decision we make actually is for them rather than for everybody sitting here in this room. And so we are hoping that at some point in time, we have a work group that starts accommodating the 4th and 5th graders into it so that we can start having the meaningful dialogues with them at that age, rather than by the time they have already been convinced that single occupancy vehicle driving alone is the best way to travel. Before we ruin them completely for life, we can bring them into well, we just went.
Email that out?
Yeah, maybe if you want to send the YouTube link to the board. That's probably the easiest.
Certainly, we will be happy to do that.
I did like, most of them were like, we need better sidewalks in our neighborhoods, and we tried to explain, kind of the various levels of responsibility for that sort of a thing. But there were a lot of sidewalk requests. Although one comment, which was my favorite, which was, my neighborhood's just perfect and I don't need anything. I was like, I'd like to hear a little more from those folks. I feel like that was an underrepresented voice there.
One more item. I think it has to be this slide. So one of the important changes we're making is a little bit more technical, and policy board may have a little less interest in this part, but it is really important for the MPO staff as well as TxDOT Waco District and Waco Transit. One of the things we want to do is that we want to do this in an annual call for amendment of any sort of amendment we need to make for any plan document or any program document. We want to streamline the process so that these questions don't keep coming up at time to time at different points in time during the year. That way there is predictability in the system, there's streamlined process so that everyone knows what to expect and when is what going to happen. And so the idea is that we initiate the call following the January policy board meeting. We'll open it for 2 weeks. And all the eligible plans that, so you can see MTP, our TIP, our Comprehensive Safety Action Plan, Alternative Active Transportation Plan, or PPP, Title VI Plan, UPWP. These are all open for amendment. A lot of these amendments are brought by the staff, but for the TIP and the MTP, especially, and the CSAP as we move forward, we're expecting these amendments to be proposed by the respective cities and the agencies. A lot of those requests are actually going to come from TxDOT Waco District and Transit. And then our expectation is that with proposal review and public engagement process initiation will happen at the February meeting. At the March policy board meeting, we'll bring the public comments that we received related to that. And March through November, what we'll do is that depending on how many proposals we get, how many staff we have available for this, just to put this in perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong, we actually did some calculation on how much time it takes us to process one amendment, and it turns out that it takes up one FTE for almost 2 months. That's the amount of time it takes us to, was that our estimation? And so it's really time consuming on our part to be able to do this. And that's one reason why we want to streamline this so that we don't end up significantly short during the process. And so based on that, what we'll do is that all the things that need to be for, there are 4 times that TxDOT does the quarterly revision of its STIP, and that's what FSWA reviews. And so we want to make sure that then we can schedule it based on the time and capacity that we have and the need for that. Which quarterly revision does it need to be plugged into? And so the idea is that we want this to be a single streamlined process, that we're all on the same page, that this is how we want to do it. And so you will hear an update from us at each of these meetings until at the January meeting, we'll actually put an agenda item for you to open up for receiving the call for amendment proposals. That's all we had.
No. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Kumar, and thank you all for being here. We still have a couple quick agenda items. Our next regularly scheduled MPO Policy Board meeting is scheduled for Thursday, October 17th at 1:30 p.m. right here. If you cannot attend the meeting, please ensure that you have assigned a proxy to represent you. Does anyone have an agenda item they would like considered for a future? All right, hearing none, we'll move to the hearing of visitors. At this time, we provide an opportunity for the public to address the MPO Policy Board on any item of MPO business not identified on this agenda. And we will open the hearing of visitors at 2:22. Has anyone registered? No one is registered. Would anyone like to speak who hasn't registered? Hearing none, we will close the hearing of visitors at the same time. Being no further business, we will adjourn this meeting at 2:23. Thank you all for making it a wonderful MPO 50th and for staying for the policy board meeting as well. Again, grateful for 50 years, looking forward to the next 50. Here. I'll be here. Good.